So this series is all about how God did it. Like, I want you guys to understand that a year ago from today, everything was in a completely different place. Like, I was depressed, I was sad, I was down, I didn't know what was going on. And just to fast forward now, where I'm seeing God, he has just been moving like supernaturally in my life. I'm showing you guys some examples in this series of how God supernaturally paid off my car, how he came through and paid a big hefty amount on my mortgage, how favor has just been coming into my life. But I'm saying this to encourage people to know that God will do it for you. You're just in a place right now where he's preparing you. You're just in this place where he's getting you ready. So today's video is all about how to wait on God in the wilderness. So if this is something that you want to learn more about, you want to be connected for the series that for the month of April, the God Did It series, make sure you click the subscribe button somewhere around this channel or somewhere around this video, because I'm telling you, you're going to come back and you're going to say God did it. Like, when God starts to do it, it's all about giving him glory. It's all about saying, no, this is not me. I'm not the person who did this. Like, you have to get into a place where you're like, no, God did it. And so I'm giving some examples that he's told me to share this month. And it's really, I pray that the way that he has increased my faith, that it begins to increase your faith to believe that God can do it for you. So let's get into today's video. So waiting on God in the wilderness. Now, I understand. I've been there. I've gone through a lot of things. So this could look like God told you to leave your job. And sometimes God tells you to leave your job. I know a lot of people come to me about this, but I want to use this as an example of waiting on God in the wilderness. Maybe you had a job before and God told you to leave that job. And so you leave the job, and in your head, you're like, I want to leave this job and I'm going to XYZ and all of this is going to happen and everything is going to work out perfectly. But then you leave the job and then you go into a season of lack. You leave the job and the way that you thought it would pan out, it didn't pan out that way. It didn't. You didn't see what God said immediately. That's waiting on God in the wilderness. That's waiting on God to show up. But in that, this is where a lot of people give up. This is where a lot of people go back to Egypt. This is where a lot of people run back to what they used to do. You run back to a job. You run back to a relationship. You run back to whatever it is that God has already brought you out of. You have to get into a place where when you wait on God, you really wait on God. And you allow him to turn that thing around. And it does not feel good. It does not feel comfortable. This is an uncomfortable space when you are in that season, in the wilderness season where you are waiting on God. Trust me, I've been there. But in that, it teaches you to trust God on a new level. It teaches you to go deeper in him. It teaches you how to lean on him. Because at some point, the door is going to open up. At some point, God's going to show up. And that's what this entire month of April is about. Talking about when God shows up. And when God shows up, he doesn't just show up in a little bitty way. He shows up in a big way. And it is when he shows up, you're going to be like, you're gonna believe so much. And I know a lot of people may be in this season where you just have not seen it yet. You haven't seen God show up in that mighty way that you know he can, that he's shown up before. But it's just the in-between. It's that middle place. It's that in-between place where you just have not seen it yet. And God is like, look, will my child stay until the end? Will my child keep pushing until the end? Will my child keep seeking me? Because even when you are in this middle place like this, like, it's still important. Even when you're in this middle place, it's still important to keep seeking God. To never get to a place where you're so frustrated and sad and down and depressed and out that you stop seeking God. Because when I was in my middle part, I would still journal. I would still pray. I may not be able to pray like I probably used to pray, but I was still in his presence and I was trying my hardest, and I would come back. Even if I get distracted or something throws me back off, I'll come back like, okay, Lord, I know I haven't been where I'm supposed to be, but here I am. So even if you are in that season where you want to turn around, give up, you're tired of waiting on God, stay connected. Because that's where God is really going to show. I mean, all I can say is he shows up and he shows out. And I don't want to go too deep into testimonies on this video. I'm just here to encourage you. I'm just here to increase your faith today. I'm here to tell you where I was in the worst season of my life. I just did a whole reading of my journal. And I read a journal from June of 2022. And in the journal, I'm talking about how I feel numb. I'm talking about how I feel like I can't even pray. I'm talking about how I feel like I can't even do anything, and questioning God, like, God, is this the life that you have for me? Like, this is a life of lack? Is this the life that you have for me? But I want people to understand that when you are in this season where you feel like God forgot about you, the important part is that you give him those feelings, you give him those cares, you give him those things that are trying to weigh you down. Because when you give him that, then that you're inviting him in and you're allowing him to come in and work it out for you. And even in this journal that I had, where I was feeling this way in that space, on January 20th, I felt numb and down and out. January 22nd or 21st, I started speaking life over myself. So when you get into that place, you want to get to a place where you start to speak life over yourself. I am more than a conqueror. I am who God says I am. I am going to step out of this. I am going to get out of this place. Like, you start to speak life to yourself, and it's going to bring you out of that place. So this is what it feels like when you're waiting on God in the wilderness. But what he wants you to understand is that you're going to get to a place later on down where there's even more warfare. There's even more fiery darts coming your way. There's so much more that's coming your way. And guess what? You already learned while you were waiting in the wilderness what you're supposed to do. The Lord is training you right now. When you start to get to a place where you haven't seen God move and he's not moving, you have to tell yourself, I'm in a training season right now. God is getting me ready for greatness. And I really believe that. Like, when you are in that space where you have not seen God move and you know you did nothing wrong. And for me, it was like, I knew I didn't do anything wrong. I knew it wasn't that I messed up or anything like that. No, that wasn't the case. I was in a training period with the Lord where the Lord is trying to get me ready and prepared for where he wanted to take me. So when you are waiting on God in the wilderness, this is what it feels like. It feels desolate. It feels like you are numb. You feel almost depressed. You feel sad. You feel down. Like, it's just like, but Lord, you said. But I'll tell y'all, if you do not faint, even in the word it says, after you have suffered for a little while, God will restore you. I'm paraphrasing. But that's when the restoration happens. You've suffered for a little while. You've been waiting in the wilderness. You feel like God has only been giving you just enough while you're in the wilderness. But guess what? Eventually you're going to come out and you're going to say, God did it. You're going to be fully restored. He's going to turn the whole thing around. And you're going to be just living a life that people can only dream about. Like, you're not just going to be reading what happens in the word, but you're going to be living it out. Even if you think about Joseph, where Joseph went from the pit to the prison to the palace. He was in a pit because of what people said and what they thought about him. Went into the prison, but he still used his gifts in the prison. Even that's the biggest takeaway for many people. When I read about Joseph, even though Joseph was in a prison where he felt like there was no light, nothing was happening in his life, nothing was shifting, nothing was changing, I'm stuck in this prison, he was still using his gift that God had given him. He was still interpreting dreams in the prison to eventually get to the palace. And the palace for us is the land flowing with milk and honey. It's the restoration. It's coming out of it. It's going through the place where you don't look like what you've been through. You know, we always say, I don't look like what I've been through. Like, God really starts to rejuvenate you. He starts to refresh you. He starts to make you into a new person. You start to look different, talk different, walk different. Because now you've been through it and you have more confidence. You're more sure of yourself. He starts to speak even a higher level of identity to you. It's so much that happens. I need to make a course or something on this, because this is a lot of information coming out of me. But today, I'm just coming on to encourage people, to let you know that God did not forget about you. God did not forget about you. God did not forget about you. He did not forget about you. He did not forget about you. You are at the top of his mind. He's just working on things behind the scenes, and he's training you for where he's going to take you. So if this is encouraging you, let me know in the comments. If this is where you are right now in this season, trust me, I've been there. And I feel like I'm in a season right now of restoration, where he is showing me that he is God. I have a lot of examples where at first I didn't feel led to talk about them, but I know I'm in a season right now where God is like, no, I need you to go out, because you're going to encourage my people to keep pushing and to keep going. And I remember a long time ago, I heard the Lord tell me, you can't stop until they see your God. Like, I have this written on my board in my office. It says, you can't stop until they see your God. And I want people to understand what that means is that for you, maybe you may be that person that when people see what God is doing in your life, they begin to believe again. They begin to believe that God can do it, and they come back and say, God did it. So this is why I'm here. This month is all about how God did it, how I went through the season of waiting on God in the wilderness, literally seeing my whole life just like cave in. But even when your life starts to cave in, I want people to understand that sometimes you built that life up without God. That's the life that you built without him. And God is like, we're going to tear this whole thing down to build it back up. You get what I'm saying? Like, sometimes you got to tear down what you've built up so that you can rebuild with God. And when you rebuild with God, you have a strong and sturdy foundation. It's not moving, it's not going, it's not flinching. You built it with God. And so for many people, you had to lose it all to gain it all. And I heard the Lord speak this to me a long time ago. He said, you're going to have to lose it all to gain it all. In whatever way that means, whatever that means to you. But you got to get to a place where you just know that it is a part of the process. You know that it's a part of the plan. You know that God does not just have you out here suffering for no reason. Like, there's purpose behind it. And like I said, this month we are going deep into how God did it. So next week, I believe next week is how God supernaturally paid off my car. I'm not sure, but there's 3 videos that he wants me to talk about. Supernatural. So you may be in a season right now where maybe you're at risk of losing your car. Maybe you're at risk of losing your house. Maybe you're at risk of losing everything. And God may just be saying, just stay in my presence. Wait on me. I know it looks a little iffy right now, but there's going to come a time where the door is going to open up and I'm going to make a way out of what looks like there is no way. So this season of this series of God Did It is just these supernatural ways that God has really stepped into my life and just turned everything around. If that's something that you want to hear about, to be encouraged in this upcoming season, because again, if God can do it for me, he can do it for you. But in that, even when it was a little shaky and it was a little scary and I thought that everything was about to go down the drain, which it definitely did look like it, in season, you know, the Bible tells us there's a time and season for everything. And in season, he showed up, and he showed up in a mighty way. I'm going to tell you guys this. $18,000 paid off on my home. Like that. So I just want people to understand that when it's time and God is like, all right, cool. I've done the work. They've been processed. I've trained them. He's going to show up. He's going to blow your mind. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. This is just the first video of this series. So if there's something that you want to hear more about and how it's so important to wait on God, click subscribe. Don't forget to like this video. Leave me a comment below, and I'll see you in the next video.